Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Reloading Chat. And today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why Hillary Clinton, talking about banning assault rifles, banning handguns, banning the AR-15, is a bluff, and why she knows she won't be successful doing it. All right, let's look back historically at what the Clintons have done. And I'm not saying she wouldn't want to do this thing, because I honestly believe she wants to destabilize America. I believe that she has financial ties to people who would very much love to see this country defenseless. You just have to look at who's financed her campaign and what their worldwide agendas are. It's not that hard. Not even you don't need conspiracy theory stuff here, guys. You just got to read the news. So obviously she would want to do that, and her husband attempted to do that during his presidency. But the thing that you need to understand, Hillary has historically, and the Clintons in general, have relied very heavily upon the black vote, the vote of the African American community. They know that's always kind of been their tiebreaker, and so they always throw their money into that. There was worse issues with gang violence back in the 90s and the 80s than there is today in the ghettos. And so they tried to do things that they thought would help them retain their votes in the black community. So doing something about the gang violence, which this is really a silly effort to do so, it didn't help at all, would help with that. And she's playing the same card today. If she can ban handguns and ban AR-15s, she'll lock in the black vote from people who are concerned about violence in black communities, and it won't do anything to clean them up at all. But here's why none of it's going to work. Go back and look at the history. We had the assault weapon ban, and high capacity magazine ban was part of it, of 1994. I was already entrenched in gun culture by then because I grew up doing this. And I even successfully bought my first AR-15 during the assault weapons ban. I was able to do so just fine. But that being said, we had this ban, and it lasted for 10 years. And during that time period when I bought my first one in the 90s, the mid to late 90s, there were 500,000 AR-15s in civilian hands, approximately 500,000, give or take. Today, we live in a different world. People are really concerned. The gun community exploded after that ban was lifted, particularly with the fear of terrorism in the post-9/11 world. We were engaged in 2 engagements fighting Islamic terrorists abroad, and the ban was lifted. What happened? Everyone bought semi-auto defensive sporting rifles. Today, 12 years later, there are estimated to be over 8 million AR-15s legally in civilian hands. The American people spoke and said, never again. You will not try to disarm us. We're not going to tolerate this. Well, there were talks back then, even in the Clinton administration, of trying to actually do gun grabs, and the logistics and intelligence came back saying that it would be impossible to disarm the American people. You know, and back then there were 500,000 AR-15s, a couple 100 million firearms in civilian hands. Now we've gone to 8 million ARs, plus other weapons, and something like 400 or 500 million firearms. We have an enormous veteran population that has been to war and come back, that are very much against gun control. Hillary knows this. They were told back then they wouldn't be able to disarm the American people. The American people are more heavily armed now than at any point in any of our lifetimes. We are easily the most heavily armed population on the earth, second to none. There is no military force on Earth or police force on Earth that would have any chance of surviving a door-to-door knock gun collection. In fact, even some of the sheriffs here in Texas, I know of at least one who basically made a public statement in a speech that if there is any attempt to confiscate guns of the American people, he will close his department for the day, that none of his deputies will be allowed to go to work or be in uniform that day because he will not have his deputies killed. Because what you would see in the event of gun confiscations, it's no longer a tiny number of people. It is an enormous growing body of people who would protest with immediate violence. Even being a police officer in uniform on that day would basically be the government and the police declaring war on the American people. It would be open season on anyone wearing any sort of uniform, showing their participation in that. So yeah, there are sheriffs who realize, no, I'm not getting my officers killed. They won't be going to work that day at all. And if you saw door-to-door stuff like that, it would be within a few days there wouldn't be anyone left to actually continue the confiscations. Logistically, it is impossible. It's not like going into Iraq. People say things, well, look at what our military did in Fallujah or in Iraq. Well, I'm sorry, Iraq is less armed than the state of Texas. The entire country of Iraq during the Iraqi war had less weaponry than the state of Texas does today. One of the 50 states, just one. And the difference there wasn't as much resistance. In some of the places like Texas or other states in the U.S., you're going to basically see hunters and rednecks sniping at people from a distance all day long who are even trying to do these entries. You're going to see hits on them while they're trying to move. You would see an insurgency come up. You would see every time they kick in a door, somebody shooting back. And after a few million times, the loss of manpower would be enormous. Basically, if that were attempted in just the state of Texas, just Texas, before you even get anywhere else, if they start down here, there wouldn't be any infantry or federal agents left to even make it to the other states. It's logistically impossible. Hillary also knows that that's exactly what would happen if she jumped up and tries to pull something like they did with the assault weapon ban before under the last Clinton administration. Because people feel so much more strongly about it today, there's more outcry, there's more fear. There's real fear of this happening. People are arming themselves to the teeth. Everywhere I look, everyone is running out of AR parts, AR-15s. People can't keep them on the shelves because Hillary is making threats and statements about this sort of stuff going into a campaign. The manufacturers can't keep up with demand. People are freaking out. They're stockpiling in anticipation of it. She knows that the American people would kill her if she attempts such a thing, but there's a massive voting bloc of people who are disconnected from the other half of the country who don't realize that. They honestly believe that it would be possible to do such a thing, that it would even be possible to just even ban AR-15s. Oh yeah, that'll work, we can just ban them, and there won't be any problems, we'll just outlaw them. They don't realize that would spark a revolution. Or you would definitely see several states leave the United States immediately. Texas would be at the front of the list. We would simply secede. And I think that's not me saying it. That's our people saying it. That's our leadership of this state saying it. We will leave the United States if you do such a thing. Vladimir Putin has already said Russia would back the state of Texas if that happens with military force. Basically, an assault rifle ban or an AR-15 ban in the United States during Hillary's presidency, if she got elected, would start World War III immediately. It would start the next week. That would start World War III because the United States would splinter. Russia and some other forces would come in and back the rebels. And World War III would actually start with a civil war in the United States. That's what you would see happen. So, such talks are nonsense from people who are completely disconnected with the rest of the country, who live in their own leftist metropolitan areas, who have no clue what's going on in the rest of the country. And that's one of the things I pointed out repeatedly, talking about how people in different regions don't understand each other and really shouldn't be writing laws and rules that govern each other. It's becoming problematic because they don't actually understand. They're disconnected from the mindset and way of life of everyone else. And they don't understand the consequences of their actions. Just like all of us, people like me, a lot of right-wingers, we don't understand New York City. We don't understand Los Angeles. We don't understand Washington, D.C., or the problems that they face. We really are going to mess up if we start trying to write laws for them. Just like people from those areas who only understand their own mindset really will mess things up if they start trying to enforce their social norms into laws for the rest of us who live in different regions of the country. So Hillary knows this. She's not a stupid woman, contrary to what a lot of you might believe. She's extremely intelligent. She's just evil. She knows that would be her death. She's not going to do that. But it sure helps her try to solidify her base with certain people. The people who really make a big deal about guns, who hate guns, who vote that way. Even anti-violence groups. They're going to vote for it. And they don't realize Hillary's a warmonger. Hillary would love to get us in a war with Russia. That's a whole nother story, though, as to what her interest would be there. I might cover that later. Just my thoughts on it. I don't know if I really want to go there on this channel. But logistically, it's not going to happen. She knows even getting the assault weapon ban reenacted, which would be maybe something she would love to do, but she would know that would spark a revolution in this country, and that would actually kick off World War III. So people who are like, oh, we could end violence with that, no, you would see more bloodshed and violence as a result of that than anything you've ever seen in a history book, ever. It would surpass the last two world wars, the amount of bloodshed that would cause because of the chain of events that would follow. So that's the last thing you want to see. And Hillary knows that. She knows that even the intelligence agencies are not going to let her try to pull such nonsense. They might deal with her the same way they dealt with JFK. So, and she's already not liked by the military and a lot of generals. So guys, this is not a real fear. It's not actually going to happen. And I don't want people to say that you should be complacent. I don't want people to think that I'm telling you to buy less guns, or that you shouldn't get another AR the first chance you can get. It's within your budget. It's not going to hurt you financially due to the political climate. You should be getting them, if nothing else, the same way that you would invest in stock. Because AR-15s extras right now are going to be worth a lot as this election gets closer. Just like me, people are like, oh, you've got that crappy M&P-15. Well, I'll probably build another replacement before this election is completely done to replace that particular rifle in my collection. It's niche. And yeah, I might just sell that rifle for several $100s more than I paid for it, even though I have over 1,000 rounds to it. Of course, it's an investment. It's like investing in stock in this political climate, to invest in defensive sporting rifles like AR-15s. It's an investment. Absolutely, you can make money off of it. So I'm not telling you guys not to do that. In fact, if you can, you should, until the market runs too high on it, and then you might have to back off. But it's already starting now because of supply and demand and people freaking out. So, I mean, if you get a good deal, grab them. Absolutely. Be worth their weight in gold as this election gets closer due to Hillary's threats. And that will prompt the manufacturers to make even more, because they're going to have to keep up with the demand. They're going to have to up production. That production is going to continue. Then we'll see a nice little drop in prices down the road. And we can all stockpile even more of them. Because the more AR rifles that American citizens own, the further we lock in our freedom, our checks and balances against tyrants, the way the Founding Fathers intended. We reduce the chance of violence the more heavily armed we are, because the more heavily armed we are, the more government fears to piss us off, the more they're going to behave. The less likely they're going to push us to revolution because it's the more likely that they are personally going to die. So again, threat of violence is the ultimate deterrent. It is the ultimate peacemaker. Every military on earth knows that. That is how you prevent violence, is the threat of overwhelming violence. Has the most success in preventing violence from actually happening. Beautiful thing. So yeah, we should definitely be buying them, but people need to understand it's not actually going to happen. You're not actually going to see them banned. There's not actually going to be these gun confiscations. Any force that attempted, even if the UN peacekeepers were brought in, the entire UN peacekeeping force couldn't disarm the city of Houston. It doesn't have the manpower or the firepower to survive coming into Houston with the local police helping them and disarming it. They would be, every blue hat would be slaughtered. They don't have enough people. So, again, these are not necessarily valid concerns, but I can appreciate them from a checks and balance perspective, and all of us need to do our part as American citizens to make sure that we are part of the deterrent strategy. Whether you fully intend to commit or not is really irrelevant. Your numbers count towards deterrence, whether you're actually going to follow through with it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.